Double agent in one piece, from Rox Pirates to World's Most Wanted. Please like, share and subscribe. Episode 71, How to Get Out of This Island. Whitebeard looked at the blue sea in front of him, and his face turned green. As a demon fruit ability, he certainly can't swim, and if Lynn doesn't take him away, he may not be able to leave here. Lynn, if you don't take me away, I'll hack you to death and sink your body into the sea. Whitebeard raised the large knife in his hand and prepared to cut it at Lynn, but in the end he did not cut it. Lynn laughed and wasn't too angry. Well, Whitebeard, there's one thing I haven't told you, and it's time to tell you. Whitebeard and Kaido noticed Lynn's expression, knew what Lynn was trying to say, and immediately sat up straight. Lynn, is there anything important? Actually, before I was a member of CP0, a secret spy organization of the world government. Lynn felt that it was still necessary to speak out. When he completely betrays the world government will certainly leak his information. Instead of being known by these people at that time, it is better to say it in advance, especially their own crew, which needs to be understood in advance. Whitebeard opened his mouth wide in surprise. Kaido and Mitsuki Oda were also confused. They also did not expect that Lynn was actually a member of the world government's secret spy organization CP0. Wait, I remember you hit a Navy general and almost killed that guy. Are you sure you're the one of the world governments? Kaido couldn't resist asking. Whitebeard was also quite surprised. Aren't you acting? No, I really wanted to kill that guy, but then I failed and gave up. As for why I told you, because I also have my own ambitions, but I was not strong at the beginning, and there was no future. Now I've decided, I'm going to be a sea thief, I'm going to build a hegemony, I'm going to let everyone know that I'm the strongest in the world. A domineering spirit soared into the sky. Whitebeard understood that Lynn had been a member of the world government, but had his own ambitions to betray the world government. The world government is really pitiful. It doesn't matter who you are to me, and I don't want to know, but you have to pay attention to the fact that the world government is very powerful. Whitebeard didn't get too entangled, that is, he was once the world government, no big deal, he didn't pay attention to it at all. He still felt that Lynn was qualified to be his best friend. Neither Kaido nor Mitsuki Oda said anything, and they had already accepted Lynn. I've told you, and you know it, now we'll get ready, and we'll leave in a little while. Lynn didn't say much, as long as these people knew, and it wasn't that he had lied to them. Well, we'll get ready now. That afternoon, Lynn left with Whitebeard and them. A few days later, Lynn came to an island and put Whitebeard down. Whitebeard prepares to board a boat to find his sons and form his own Whitebeard Pirates. As for Lynn, just off the coast, ready to say goodbye to Whitebeard, he also plans to form his own pirate group. On the shore, Whitebeard is still a bit stubborn. Lynn, really don't you join my pirate group? If we don't form a pirate group together, then even the world government will not be able to help us. Lynn couldn't help but roll her eyes. Sure enough, Whitebeard still wanted to take him as a son, and this bad old man was very bad. No, but the two of us can be relatives, and after my grandson is your son, let her give you a pension. Lynn couldn't help but tease. The white-bearded face was green. It is really disgusting to think of being his father again. And also, is this what is called pro-family? Lynn, I don't want to talk to you too much, I still have something to do, I'll go first, and I'll have a chance to meet later. Whitebeard's boat left. Above the ship, many pirates were trembling, because this ship was stolen by Whitebeard, and they were powerless to resist. Lynn just watched silently as Whitebeard left. Wait until the Whitebeard completely disappears from sight, Lynn, then look at Kaido and Mitsuki Mida, with a glint in his eyes. Kaido and Mida, it's time for us to find a ship too, the Black Dragon Pirates, which are now being formed. What? Black Dragon Pirates? Why is it called this pirate group? It can be called the Green Dragon Pirate Regiment, or it can be called the 100 Beasts Pirate Regiment, Kaido began to propose. After all, the Black Dragon was Lynn's incarnation, and had nothing to do with him. He still wanted to use the name of the Green Dragon Pirate Regiment. Just because I'm the captain, so I use this name, and how can I use the name of the Green Dragon Pirate Regiment? I don't know if I thought you were the captain. Lynn's tone was particularly domineering. The name of this pirate regiment he had thought about for a long time, and it was also the name he was most satisfied with. Kaido thought about it, too. The name of the Green Dragon Pirate Regiment was really inappropriate, after all, Lynn was the captain. Or it's called the 100 Beasts Pirate Regiment, which I think is a good name. Kaido continued. Lynn looked a little strange, not expecting Kaido to actually think of the 100 Beasts Pirates. The original 100 Beasts pirate regiment is the future 4 emperors, but unfortunately, the current Kaido is already his subordinate, and the 100 Beasts pirate regiment no longer exists. Otherwise, it's still called the Samurai Pirate Regiment, which I think is a very good name, and it can also be called the Swordsman Pirate Regiment, which is particularly excellent. Mitsuki Oda next to him also thought of his own pirate group name. Lynn's face darkened instantly, and he suddenly pulled out the demon's sword and placed it in front of the two of them, gently weighing it. What did you just say? What should our pirate group be called? I didn't hear me clearly, so I ask you to say it again. The meaning of this statement is already obvious. If you don't obey, you will cut people down. Mitsuki's face changed instantly. He didn't seem to be able to beat Lynn, so he could only give up all this. Even Kaido's face changed. I suddenly felt that the name of the Black Dragon Pirate Regiment was also quite good, and it would be called this pirate regiment in the future. Mitsuki Mikata and Kaido were both provoked. Lynn smiled happily, quite brightly. Well, now it's time to go, and the Black Dragon Pirates can set sail. Episode 72. A few days later, Lynn grabbed a boat and took Kaido with them on their way. The Black Dragon Pirates officially set sail. On the surface of the sea, the ships were sailing, and there were only 3 people, Lynn, Kaido, and Mitsuki Mita, and no one else. Those garbage pirates were simply not entitled to ride with him on a boat. On deck, Lynn and the 3 of them were drinking. Because I don't know what to do except drink, it's boring enough. Boo poo boo poo. Boo poo boo loo. Suddenly, a phone rang. Lynn took out the phone bug and frowned slightly. Because this telephone worm is the telephone worm of the 5 old stars, it means that the 5 old stars have called. I just don't know the specific purpose of the 5 old stars. Don't talk, the 5 old stars of the world government have called and seen me fool him. Kaido and Mitsuki Mita both stopped drinking, and the 2 of them were still curious about the 5 old stars. This is the supreme power of the legendary world government. Lynn quickly answered the phone. Hey, what's the task? Lynn, you did a great job of killing Lox, but I've heard that you killed him alone. The tone of the 5 old stars was not very good. Lynn instantly understood, because his strength was too strong, causing the 5 old stars to be jealous of him. It seems that it will not be long before he completely turns his face to the world government. But it didn't matter, he didn't need to be afraid of the world government anymore, and it wouldn't be so difficult for the world government to take him down. I did it. Lynn didn't hide either. All the 5 old stars looked at each other, and Lynn was not very strong at the beginning, but he did not expect to defeat Lox. It couldn't be that Lynn was hiding herself. Remembering Lynn's intelligence, having learned swordplay, and possessing world-class swordplay, they didn't know that. They remembered that Lynn hadn't learned. Lynn, in particular, had been studying at CP0, occasionally going out on missions and simply didn't have time to learn swordplay. They can only be attributed to Lynn's talent. Being able to defeat Lox may have been due to the acquisition of the black dragon fruit of the animal Esper species. But none of that mattered, Lynn was too strong to seem to be out of the control of their world government. The 5 stars wanted to test Lynn. Lynn, do you have a mission next? Of course there is, and I've decided, go near Edward Newgate and see if I can assassinate him. Beside Mitsuki Mita and Kaido collectively rolled their eyes. Not long ago, Lynn personally sent Whitebeard away, how could it be possible to assassinate Whitebeard? It's really fooling the 5 old stars. The 5 old stars felt that Lynn was still quite loyal. And if you think about it, although Lynn is a little stronger and has the strength to surpass Lox, he is only a person after all. Their world government is still very large. If it weren't for the fact that Lox had many subordinates, each of whom was a pinnacle figure, their world government would not be afraid. Lynn is actually really nothing. Well, find a way to kill Whitebeard. But now there's a trouble, I want to join the Whitebeard Pirates, but he doesn't need to, he said he was just my friend, he was separated from me. Lynn started flickering again. The 5 old stars frowned, and they didn't expect Lynn to be separated from Whitebeard. It would be difficult to kill Whitebeard in this way. It doesn't matter, you first mix in the new world, form a pirate regiment at random, and when you have a mission, you will go on a mission. There was a glint in Lynn's eyes. He just wanted to form a pirate group, and the 5 old stars asked him to form a pirate group. This should be the legendary bong to be a pirate. But it's normal, like future supernovae, some of them are spies for the world government, and even Kaido's horseboy. Understand, I will definitely work for the world government. Lynn was talking about being on his toes, as if he really wanted to serve the world government. Both Kaido and Mitsuki Oda despised it anyway. They didn't believe that Lynn was going to help the world government. It was also quite pitiful to the 5 old stars, who were stunned by Lynn's flickering. The 5 old stars really believed in Lynn. Then you work on yourself. The main thing is that the 5 old stars think that the strength of the world government is relatively strong, and they do not think that Lynn dares to rebel. The 5 old stars quickly hung up the phone. Lynn happily put the phone away, and then smiled and looked at Mitsuki and Kaido next to her. See? That's how I usually fool them, a bunch of fools, and I really think I'm loyal to the world government. These idiots will believe you, what a bunch of fools, and blame them for staying in the Holy Land Mary Joa. Kaido couldn't help but scorn. Even Mitsuki nodded. These people are really pitiful, they have been deceived by you, alas, but this has nothing to do with me. Well, without saying so much, let's hurry up and find a territory, and then go find some subordinates. I don't have any subordinates until now. Lynn sighed and looked at Kaido and Mitsuki. As the top strong man who defeated Rox, one of the most powerful pirates in the world, there were only 2 little brothers. These 2 little brothers are not very obedient. Kaido took a step back. Lynn, I always think there's something strange in your eyes, are you thinking something? Nothing, I didn't think about anything, by the way, let's go quickly, go to the front, find an island, and then collect some men. Lynn immediately turned and looked out over the sea. At a glance, the sea is sparkling and the waves are not happy. Unfortunately, there is not a single ship. Lynn, I don't think anything else should be considered at this time, I'm hungry, when are we going to eat? Mitsuki touched his stomach. Lynn reacted at this time, his stomach was also a little hungry, and he really should get some food. You go down and salvage some sea kings, and today we'll grill a little faster. Got it. Mitsuki did not hesitate, immediately took 2 knives, and just jumped into the sea, and then the sword light flashed. A few minutes later, Mitsuki was carrying a very large fish and dropped it on the deck, and the pirate ship shook violently. It's time to start the barbecue. Lynn also pulled out the demon knife Muramasa. Even Kaido next to him was a little confused. His stomach was also hungry. Episode 73, The sea is sparkling and the water is not happy. From time to time on the surface of the sea, a bird flies by, and then rushes into the sea, grabs a fish, and eats a big meal. Suddenly, a pirate ship approached from a distance, and the bird was frightened, flapped its wings vigorously, and flew quickly into the distance. In the pirate boat, Lynn sat on the edge of the deck with a hook in her hand, fishing seriously. There are also a lot of pirates on the deck. Except for Kaido and Mitsuki, the others were all recently accepted by Lynn, and they were not some famous sea thieves, but they could come over and do chores. For example, sailing, there are always some sailors. Surely Lynn couldn't be allowed to be a sailor herself, and it would be too cheap to say it. Lynn, it's been so long, you haven't caught a single fish. Mitsuki grabbed a big fish in his hand and looked at Lynn triumphantly. He couldn't beat Lynn in the fight, but in fishing, Lynn was inferior to him, and there was not a single one now, and it had been 3 days. Lynn's face was ugly. His luck was so bad that he hadn't caught a single fish in the past 3 days, even Kaido next door. This is clearly discriminating against him. Hee. Mitsuki noticed Lynn's eyes and was more proud and smiled more happily. Bang. Without saying a word, Lynn slashed the back of a knife, just on Mitsuki body, knocking Mitsuki away. Mitsuki flew hundreds of meters, and then fell into the sea, still flying backwards continuously, and even set off waves on the surface of the sea. It's like playing with water when I was a child. Kaido especially wanted to laugh, but restrained, he didn't dare to offend Lynn. Lynn was angry, he would also be beaten up. Let you laugh at me, although I can't catch fish, it's easy to beat you. Inside the sea, Mitsuki was speechless. Lynn was so unscrupulous. Obviously it was a fishing contest, and it was absolutely impossible for Lynn to use force in a vain attempt to conquer him. At the same time, in the distance, suddenly a ship approached. Lynn saw the ship and frowned slightly. He knew that this ship was a slave-hunting ship, which specialized in capturing slaves. When he was loyal to the world government, he helped the world nobleman Dracobo escort a slave-hunting ship, for which he had never been ashamed. It's just that he didn't have a chance to resist before, and now that his strength has become stronger, he no longer encourages anyone, and he doesn't need to pay attention to these slave trades at all. Of course, the main thing is that the pirate group has just been established, and it has not been robbed until now, plus it has just been ridiculed by Mitsuki, and he is a little unhappy. Kaido, robbed. Lynn rushed out first, jumped with ease, and crossed the distance between the seas and jumped onto the enemy's ship. Enemy attack. The captain noticed Lynn, and as soon as he shouted, Lynn slashed down and split the captain in half. Kaido also jumped on the boat, punched a little friend, and quickly knocked everyone away. There is hardly any way to fight back. Lynn also walked inside the cabin and took a closer look, and there were slaves everywhere, and it was mostly young and beautiful women. Occasionally there are a few pirates with a bounty, but the bounty is not very high, otherwise it would not be possible to be caught. Among these beautiful actresses, Lynn noticed a girl with green hair and a kimono. If he remembered correctly, this young girl seemed to be called Tenzuki, who had crossed over from 800 years ago, and the future was Mitsuki's wife. Unfortunately, it is only the future, and the current Tianue is not the wife of Mitsuki Mita, but just a young girl who has just crossed over. Lynn quickly had an idea in her mind. Tianue is very beautiful and has a very good figure, and she is also an authentic Yamato Fumiko, an absolutely gentle girl. He wanted to eliminate Hikari Momosuke from the route. There was no need to kill Hikari Mita. As long as he abducted Hikari Suki, it would be equivalent to eliminating Hikari Momosuke. For the safety of beautiful women in the future, Lynn decides to eliminate Mitsuki Momosuke. Tianue also looked at Lynn at this time, and when she saw Lynn in front of her, she suddenly had a glimmer of anticipation in her heart, hoping that Lynn would save her. In addition to anticipation, Tianue felt that Lynn was also quite handsome, and her heart was even jumping and there was some nervousness. Lynn also noticed the look in Tianue's eyes, and his heart was a little proud, and sure enough, he was still too handsome, plus the hero saved the beauty, and easily captured the girl's heart. As for Mitsuki Mita, there is no way but to return to your country of peace and inherit your daimyo. Beauty has him to take care of. Lynn raised the demon knife to Muramasa, and with a light knife, he cut the chain. Are you okay? Tianue immediately stepped out of it, then bent down and bowed. Benefactor, thank you for saving your life. Lynn waited for a moment, still wanting to see if she could hear the words of her own body. But obviously, Lynn is thinking too much, although he is quite handsome, but he has not yet reached the point of being a good person. At most, I have a good feeling for him when I am in the sky. No thanks, in fact, I hate these slave hunters, it's so disgusting, it's just a beast. Tianue listened to Lynn's words, felt empathy, and nodded his head very seriously. Yes, these guys are so bad that they dare to lie to me, otherwise I would never have been caught. Lynn also remembered that it seemed that Tianue was because he was deceived, and then he was caught by the slave ship, or he was a little unlucky. Now you're all right, by the way, I'll go and let the others go, and you'll wait for me here. Okay. Lynn turned and walked over to the other cages and cut off all the chains. The people inside also came out, all thankful for Lynn. If it wasn't for Lynn, they would have become slaves. Tianue also silently looked at Lynn's back and suddenly felt that Lynn was particularly good. Not only is the person handsome, the strength is also very strong, and the person is very good. Maybe you can marry Lynn. When I remembered what my parents said, I would find a man I liked and was particularly good. Lynn is a good fit. Even Lynn herself didn't know that what he had in mind when he was playing Tianue. Tianue was also playing his idea, and even wanted to have a baby with him. If he knew, Lynn would definitely take the initiative to completely take down the future of the Light Moon and Peach Soak. Episode 74. Soon, all the slaves were released, and as for those who captured the slaves, they were all solved by Lynn. In the sea, Mitsuki Oda had just jumped out and returned to the pirate ship, and when he saw the heavenly moon, his eyes instantly lit up. Belle. As a professional old sex ghost, Mitsuki Mita's favorite is a beautiful woman, and even if it is not beautiful, Mitsuki Mita will flirt. At the beginning, she flirted with the daughter of the Big Mother, and was beaten up by the Big Mother, so there was some shadow in the heart of the Big Mother. Coupled with the fact that the eldest mother let him have a child with her daughter, Mitsuki Oda was even more frightened. Beauty. Mitsuki Oda jumped excitedly toward Akazuki, but before he could speak, Lynn kicked down and kicked Mitsuki away. Naturally, he couldn't have given Mitsuki Mita this chance. All the beauties are his. The days and months are no exception. I'm really sorry, this is my crew, but I'm not a good person. I often peek at girls taking baths, robbing women, everything has been done, you must be careful. Lynn opened his mouth and said all the black dots of Mitsuki Mita, ruining Mitsuki Mita's character, and it was time to see how Mitsuki Mikuta competed with him. Sure enough, Tianue listened to Lynn's words, and then remembered the expression of Mitsuki Mita, and instantly believed it. Mitsuki Oda is an old rogue thing. So you must be careful in the future, but don't let him take advantage of you," Lynn said solemnly. Tianyue believed it and nodded solemnly. "I see, I'll be careful." Lynn wasn't too happy in her heart. Mitsuki Ida jumped out of the sea and looked at Lynn with a look of resentment on her face. "Lynn, you're saying bad things about me again. Am I the kind of person you said? Didn't you peek at the girls taking a shower?" Lynn asked rhetorically. Mitsuki Oda was dumbfounded and speechless when asked. He seemed to really peek at the girls taking a bath, but it was still a little embarrassed to be said like this. "Look, you've done so many bad things yourself, and you're still afraid of people saying it. How do you mean it?" Lynn despised Ichigo Tsukita. Mitsuki Mita's face turned red, and when he secretly glanced at Tianyue, he had some feelings in his heart. He suddenly found that he liked the time of the moon and the sky. This. "Captain, you give me a face, how to say so many people, I still want face." Mitsuki Oda took Lynn's arm and said quietly. Lynn saw Mitsuki's expression and knew that Mitsuki Mita was interested in Tenzuki. "But I'm sorry, in order to eliminate the evil demon king of Hikari Momotosuk, Lynn needs to take down the heavenly moon." "I know, I won't say it." Lynn turned and walked toward the moon. "By the way, the girl in the sky and the moon, look at you like this, you haven't eaten for a long time, so I might as well invite you to eat." Tianyue did not refuse, followed Lynn, and entered the cabin together. Mitsuki Oda looked at the back of the heavenly moon and was a little distracted. I had never seen such a beautiful girl before, but Mitsuki Mita was a little shy and a little restrained. Kaido noticed Mitsuki Mita's expression next to him and instantly understood that this boy actually had someone he liked. And it seems like the same person as Lynn. Well, the captain's wife, whom the crew likes to watch, can be written into a novel, and then it can definitely be sold. "Hey, Mita, don't you like this girl called Tenzuki? I think she may be interested in Lynn, but you still have this heart dead." Kaido definitely needs to be reminded. Although he usually looked at Mitsuki Mita particularly unhappy, he couldn't look at Mitsuki Mita without a heart and eyes, and had to rob a woman with Lynn. Is there one? How did I not know about this? I don't seem to like Lynn when I think I don't like Lynn. Mitsuki Mita thinks that he is more handsome, and Tianyue did not like Lynn, maybe he likes him. Kaido couldn't help but shake his head. This guy is so confident in himself that he doesn't even know what to say. Inside the cabin, Lynn took a portion of the roast meat and placed it in front of the moon. "Come on, this roast is pretty good, you eat more." "Thank you." Tianyue nodded, then picked up the roast meat and chewed it up in small bites. Halfway through the meal, when Tianyue looked up, he noticed that Lynn was looking at himself, and he was a little shy inside. "Mr. Lynn, do you want to eat a little too?" Tianyue picked up a piece of bread in his right hand and handed it to Lynn. Lynn was also not polite, opening her small mouth and biting lightly, her tongue touching the pink little hand of the heavenly moon. It also carries a strange fragrance. When Tianyue was touched by Lynn, his face instantly turned red, and he lowered his head shyly. "I'm sorry, I just didn't take care of it." Lynn pretended to apologize, but was happy inside. "It's okay, I know you didn't mean it." Tianyue was not angry. It didn't take long for night. "Girl, if I give you my room, you will rest in my room tonight." Mitsuki Oda took the initiative to stand up and prepare to give up his room to Tenzuki. Tianyue just looked at Tsukizuki Oda and felt very disgusted. After all, this is a person who peeks at the girl's bath, definitely not a good person. If she slept in the room of the heavenly moon, she might even be peeked at by the heavenly moon, so she had to be careful. "By the way, girl of the celestial moon, you can go to my room is still relatively clean." Lynn looked deeply at Tsukioda, then offered to invite. He also didn't expect that Mitsuki Mita was actually interested in Tainyushi, so he had to be careful, and when he tried to take down Tianyue first, then Mitsuki Mita would not be able to do anything. "Then thank you, Mr. Lynn." Tianyue was very grateful to Lynn and did not refuse. Mitsuki Oda fell to the ground and covered his heart, feeling that his heart was broken. The girl he secretly has a crush on seems to like his own captain. If you think about it, Lynn is handsome, powerful, and the captain of this pirate regiment, with a high status and a special excellence. He really didn't seem to be as good as Lynn. Mitsuki Ida soon recovered. "No way, Lynn is so handsome, he is not qualified to compare with Lynn at all." Episode 75. Kaido walked over and gently patted Mitsuki Onta. "Alas, no way, you look too ugly, and Lynn can't compare, naturally you can't catch up with girls." Mitsuki nodded subconsciously. Indeed, in terms of appearance, he is indeed much worse than Lynn, and there is no comparable qualification at all. But soon, Mitsuki Mita suddenly reacted, looking at Kaido with a black line on his face. What do you mean by that? Don't I have Lin Shuai? It's absolutely impossible, I'm much more handsome than Lin. Mitsuki Oda herself was a little incredulous. Anyway, Kaido was particularly disdainful. Being a man actually has no self-awareness, this whole pirate group, who does not know that he is the most handsome, Lin the second marshal, Mitsuki Oda is the worst. Mitsuki Oda didn't say much, and when he looked at Tianyue silently, he finally sighed and decided to give up Taianyushi. After all, Tianyue was obviously not interested in him, and he was not embarrassed to compete with Lin, how to say that he was also a member of the same pirate group. Of course, there is also a big reason why Mitsuki Oda is afraid of failure, and it will be too humiliating at that time. A week later, on deck, Lin and Tianyue sat together, talking and laughing, and there were some fruits and drinks next to them. Come, Lin, eat more. Tianyue picked up a piece of fruit and put it in Lin's mouth, and Lin gently chewed it twice, and licked Taianyushi's hand. Is it delicious? Of course it's delicious. Lin nodded, then licked it twice. Tianyue only had a flushed flush on his cheeks, and he didn't care too much. In just 1 week, Lin and Taianyushi were very close, and they could even make some kind gestures. Feeding each other is just the basics. Sometimes, Lin would even kiss when she put her arms around the moon. In the distance, Mitsuki Mita looked at the two people so kindly, and he was speechless. His heart was now even dripping blood. His first love was robbed by Lin. That is all, Lin has shown love every day and moon these days, showing quite kindness, and he looks at his heart with jealousy. Kaido patted Mitsuki's shoulder again. Don't think too much, you two are impossible, go and drink more and forget everything. Mitsuki's face turned green and she couldn't help but give Lin a blank stare. Captain, can't you just pay attention? There are so many people here, you are so affectionate, okay? Lin then stopped, turned her head to look at Tsukioda, and then looked at Kaido next to her. Really, if you're particularly jealous, you can have more of Kaido, and I'm sure Kaido won't care. Kaido's face turned black, and he slapped Mitsuki Inada's shoulder and glared at Mitsuki Oda. Do you think it's possible between the two of us? Mitsuki Oda also carefully observed Kaido, and couldn't help but shiver. It's absolutely impossible between us, and I can't look at him, so don't think about it. Lin smiled secretly, then put a hand on Taianyushi's shoulder and pulled it gently. Tianyue did not refuse, and Shunshur fell into Lin's arms, and the expressions of the two were quite kind. Mitsuki Oda felt that his heart was broken and was trampled on by Lin again. By the way, when the moon comes, do you have any places you want to go next? I'll send you. Lin asked. He remembered that the target of the heavenly moon seemed to be the kingdom of Wano. It just so happens that the recent period of time is quite boring, you can go to the country of peace to pass the time. Where do you want to go? A glint appeared in his eyes during the heavenly moon. If I could, I wanted to go to the country of peace, and I've never been there. Upon hearing about the country of peace, Mitsuki Oda came to the spirit and felt that his opportunity had come, after all, it was his own territory. There's something I'm familiar with, and I can take you. I am very familiar with it, and the daimyo has a very good attitude towards me, and I can take you there, and by the way, I will go all over the country of Wano. Lin took a step ahead of Mitsuki Mita. Mitsuki Oda turned black and was preempted by Lin again, and the key to the country of peace was his hometown. Girl of the heavenly moon, my father is the daimyo of the kingdom of Wano, and I can take you there. Lick the dog. Lin sneered at the side. The corners of Mitsuki's mouth twitched slightly. Is he licking a dog? Is he much like a licking dog? Not to mention, it really seems to be quite similar. Wait a minute. Lin, you seem to be licking a dog too, right? Mitsuki Mita couldn't help but say a word. No, the two of us have a close relationship, this is called loving each other, she has no feelings for you, you are thick-skinned, just call licking dogs. Lin laughed playfully and wrapped her arms around the moon like a loving couple. Although Tianyue was particularly shy, he was still happy to rely on Lin. Mitsuki Mita's heart was broken again. Kaido shook his head helplessly. Mita, as I said long ago, it is impossible between you, so why do you have to go near Lin? It is better to honestly find someone to marry and have children. Alas. Mitsuki Oda sighed. Tianyue saw Mitsuki Mita so sad and couldn't help but say. Mita, in fact, you are a good person, but there is really no fit between us, and I believe that you can definitely find a better one. Mitsuki Oda suddenly jumped up in excitement. You're right, I can definitely find a better one. How can I get tangled up with a person? Lynn is actually quite happy. Don't look at him often hit Mitsuki Mita, but he especially values Mitsuki Mita. After all, Mitsuki Oda was his subordinate, and he was still one of his cadres, and he certainly didn't want Mitsuki Mita to have an accident. It was a bit pitiful. He snatched away his wife who originally belonged to him, but he also indirectly eliminated the light moon Peach Nosuk, which was a good thing. Well, don't say so much, just go to the country of peace, just right, Mita, you haven't been back in years, you can go back and see. Lynn made the decision to go to the land of peace first, to see it while accompanying Tianyue, and then to begin the journey to dominate the new world. Tianyue threw herself into Lynn's arms in excitement. Thank you, big brother Lynn. Her biggest goal was to go to the country of peace, and she deliberately traveled 800 years to this end. Okay, then let's go back. Mitsuki Oda did not refuse, he also missed home. Kaido had found a place to sit down, and he had planned to find a place first, but since Lynn had decided, he could listen to Lynn. Episode 76, The Land of Peace. A pirate ship gradually approached the shore. At the bow of the ship stood a middle-aged man. The man held a long sword in his hand, looked tall and mighty, and his eyes were not frightened, but he carried a strong momentum on his body. Next to it stood a lot of fierce pirates. This man was no ordinary man, he was also one of the top cadres of the Rox Pirates, and Lynn's former colleague. The famous John. Next to John, there stood the Silver Axe. The two men have formed an alliance temporarily, with the aim of dominating the New World and becoming one of the kings of the New World. They don't think they can surpass Rox, but being a good sea thief is still qualified. Ahead is the country of peace. Silver Axe said suddenly. John nodded, his eyes fixed on the kingdom of peace. Indeed, in front of you is the kingdom of Wano, and it is said that there are many excellent samurai in it, as well as many famous swords. The purpose of the two of them came here was to conquer the kingdom of peace and then achieve their own kingship. The reason why he wanted to conquer the kingdom of peace was that he had heard Lin say it, and later heard Wang Ji's men say that there was a supreme sword here. Therefore, the two wanted to conquer this place first, train some samurai, and get the supreme sword by the way. It can be said that the country of Wano was attacked 7 or 8 years ahead of schedule, because of Lin. Soon, the pirate ship docked. Just near the shore, many samurai rushed up and surrounded John. Stop, pirates are not welcome here, get us out of here. The samurai were still as arrogant as last time. Unfortunately, they didn't meet Lin, and John wasn't as good as Lin. Hearing these warriors have such an arrogant attitude, John's eyes are full of murderous spirit, and he decides to use brutal means to conquer the place. Kill me. Kill. Soon, the entire kingdom of Wano was conquered. In particular, John and Silver Axe, the two top masters, are overwhelming and unstoppable. In less than half a month, the entire Wano kingdom surrendered, and even Mitsuki Shukiyaki could only flee with some of the remnants of the defeated army. Although the entire Wano kingdom surrendered, it was only on the surface, and there were still many people who resisted. Some people even went to sea to look for Mitsuki Oda and let Mitsuki Oda bring someone back to help. On the surface of the sea, Lin's ship sailed at great speed. Suddenly, a ship rushed from afar. Mitsuki Oda saw the ship and suddenly became excited. There's a pirate group again, and I'll give this one to me. Excitedly, Mitsuki Oda immediately rushed out, leaping into the air, and vigorously wielded the double sword, that is, two-sword chi leaped out. The speed of the sword chi was very fast, but in an instant, it cut the enemy ship in half, and a large amount of seawater frantically poured in. But in a few moments, the ship sank completely. Mitsuki Oda turned triumphantly. How's it going? That's what I'm capable of. Lin walked over to Mitsuki Oda and slapped Mitsuki Oda hard, causing Mitsuki to be dizzy. You're an idiot, and you don't listen to me. Don't you see that the warriors opposite you and the kingdom of you? Mitsuki Mita was still a little angry, but when he heard Lin's words, his face changed instantly, and then he turned his head mechanically. How could it be, the people of the Kingdom of Peace, absolutely impossible to be here. Kaido also glanced into the distance, and there were many people struggling on the surface of the sea, indeed all samurai. Mitsuki Oda naturally saw it too, a little anxious, and even a little overwhelmed. How is this possible? How could something like this happen? Idiot, don't hurry up and salvage it. Lin patted Mitsuki Mita's head again. Mitsuki Mikuta reacted and had to find a way to save his people. 10 minutes later, everyone was salvaged. One of the samurai looked at Mitsuki with a grudge on his face. Lord Mita, I know you don't want to go back, but you don't have to draw your sword as soon as you meet this. I didn't mean it, you have to believe me, I really didn't mean it. Mitsuki Oda was particularly embarrassed, not knowing what to say, and could only try to explain. Knowing that these people were all people from the country of peace, he couldn't have suddenly moved. The samurai was still about to say something, when he suddenly remembered the matter of Ueno Kuni, and looked a little flustered. Lord Mita, it's not good, not long ago a group of pirates invaded the country of Ueno, and Lord Daimyo has been defeated, and the whole country of Ueno has been defeated. What? Who is it? Mitsuki Oda was a little anxious, it was his own country after all, not to mention that his father had been defeated. I don't know, they seem to be called John, and there is a silver axe, which is really too powerful, and all of them are not their opponents. The samurai was visibly hit, and his eyes were filled with trepidation. Lynn and Mitsuki got a look at each other. These two are not the cadres of the Rox Pirate Regiment. Mita, hurry up and get ready, we'll set off now and try to get there as soon as possible. Lynn said hurriedly. He knew very well that in the country of peace, even Kaido could not deal with it in the original book, let alone John and the silver axe. Both are sea thieves standing at the top. Yes, you have to get back as soon as possible, you can't deal with those people. Mitsuki Mita's expression was also very serious. He had been a member of the Rox Pirates and was well aware of the strength of those cadres. Neither Lox nor Wang Ji could deal with them. Only Lin or Kaido can afford to fight these two people. The pirate ship sped up. In less than 3 days, the pirate ship approached the country of Ueno. Just as she was about to arrive, Lin turned her head and looked at Kaido. Kaido, whether it's John or Silver Axe, is very powerful, and there's no way you can hold them back for a while. Lin wasn't sure that he would pick a two, even if his strength was particularly strong, and Kaido's help was needed. Regardless of defeating John or the Silver Axe, at least it is necessary to drag on time until he has won or lost. Kaido raised the mace in his hand. Silver Axe, I have long wanted to teach him a lesson, he will be handed over to me, you can rest assured to fight John, I will never be defeated until you have won or lost. Well, Mita, when the time comes, you will solve those ordinary enemies as soon as possible and then help Kaido, and as for John, it will be up to me. Lin was confident. If you want to defeat John, you have to rely on him. Understood. The pirate ship continued to speed up and soon docked. Episode 77, Stand by me, no intrusion is allowed here. As soon as the pirate ship docked, many pirates rushed out and blocked the way. How? Can't I come too? Lin slowly stepped down from the boat, staring at the pirate below, one hand on the handle of the demon knife village, domineering side leakage. Lord Lin. These pirates were all former members of the Lox Pirate Regiment, and naturally knew Lin and knew that Lin had defeated Lox. So when I saw Lin, I was a little scared in my heart, let alone blocking Lin. After a moment of stalemate, a pirate finally came out of it, bent over, with a smile on his face, looking as flattering as he wanted. Lord Lin, this is already Lord John's and the Silver Axe's territory, so you might as well. Sonorous. Before the pirate could finish speaking, Lin pulled out the demon knife and a flash of red light passed through the pirate. The pirate's body trembled for a moment, and a large amount of blood suddenly sprang out of his body, and then he fell mechanically to the ground, and his entire body was cut open by Lin. Who else wants to threaten me? We can stand up together, and I promise not to do it. Lin's grim eyes scanned the crowd. Everyone bowed their heads, afraid to look at Lin. As for Lin not moving, it was just a joke, and they didn't believe Lin. It is estimated that as long as he stands up, he will be hacked to death by Lin. Hurry up and tell John that they're coming, and say I'm here waiting for them. Lin retrieved the demon's sword and found a place to sit down, with Kaido and Mitsuki Oda standing on either side. The pirates immediately scattered in droves. They didn't dare to make Lin angry, so they had to inform John. On the other side, John and Silver Axe soon learned of Lin's arrival, frowning slightly, still a little nervous. After all, Lin and Whitebeard are very powerful, and if they really fight, they really don't have to be the opponents of the two. But as soon as they heard that Whitebeard was gone, John was not afraid, and they set off on the same day, and reached the shore the next day. Lin, congratulations on being able to defeat Lox and become the new overlord. Although John said congratulations, he was very upset in his heart, why could Lin ride on their heads? Actually said that Lin is the new sea overlord. Lin naturally saw the unhappiness in John's eyes, but he didn't care too much. John, give you face, pack up your things at once, leave this country, and I'll let you go, or don't blame me for not being polite. John's face was particularly ugly, and he always felt that he had been humiliated by Lynn. She had also been a cadre of the Rox Pirates, and was on a par with Lynn, who dared to speak in a commanding tone. The silver axe expression next to it was also a little not very good. Lynn, if I remember correctly, you once said, help you lure the Navy away, you owe me a favor. John didn't want to fight with Lynn, even if he won, Lynn could fly away, so he could only bear the displeasure in his heart. Lynn paused. He seems to have really said that he owes a favor. Do I owe humanity? Lynn turned her head and looked at Mitsuki Mikuta, her eyes wide open and talking blindly. Mitsuki Mita instantly understood what Lynn meant, and nodded solemnly. I haven't heard of it, Kato, what about you? I haven't heard of it either, I just remember you talking to Squire, not to anyone else. Both men were talking nonsense with their eyes wide open. John was also speechless by Lynn's disgrace. Obviously said, actually pretended not to know. Do you want the little face? In the face of John's contemptuous eyes, Lynn didn't care at all. What is face? Can I eat it? Since you can't eat it, you don't need face. Lynn, I didn't expect you to be the same, faceless man. John couldn't help but say a word. This face, he longed to slap it over. Ha ha ha. Lynn burst out laughing loudly and turned her head to look at Kaido and Mitsuki Mita. This is the biggest joke I've ever seen this year, we're pirates, do we need friendship besides companions? Kaido and Mitsuki Oda were also laughing. Indeed, apart from peers, there is no need for friendship at all, let alone face. John, for the sake of our fighting together, you left here with people, and I acted as if nothing had happened. But if you have to stay, don't blame me for not being polite. With a sonorous sound, Lynn pulled out the demon sword, the tip of the knife aimed at the ground, and a cold light burst out, leaving a white mark on the ground. John could no longer suppress his inner anger, and the silver axe next to him was also particularly angry. Lynn, don't be arrogant, you're the only one, why did you get me? That's right, if you want to beat the two of us, you can't do it alone. Silver Axe and John stepped forward at the same time, one man drawing his sword, one man removing his coat, ready for war. If Whitebeard was here, they would never have the guts to do anything to Lynn, but if Lynn was alone, they wouldn't be afraid. Lynn naturally knew what these two people were thinking, and she didn't care too much. Beat a man, he is still sure. Even if he loses, he can easily retreat. Kaido, you go to deal with the silver axe, John will hand it over to me. I have long wanted to teach this guy a lesson, today I must vent my displeasure. Lynn walked forward slowly, leaving a footprint on the ground with each step. I see, the silver axe will be handed over to me. Kaido raised his mace and followed Lynn, his eyes fixed on the silver axe. Just because this boy wants to beat me, it's just a joke. Silver Axe had disdain in his eyes and didn't take Kaido in his eyes at all. He did not know that Kaido, who had obtained the fish fruit 2 years in advance, had already grown by leaps and bounds and reached the level of a general. Not like the original, still an intern. The current Kaido, not to mention reaching the original step, but if you want to delay for a while, you can easily do it. Lynn, these people are handed over to you, and the others are handed over to me. Mitsuki Ada can't wait to rush into the crowd, wanting to solve these pirates in advance and save the country of peace. Kill. John shouted and pounced first, and the Great War broke out completely. Episode 78, Lynn, give me death. John leapt into the air, clenched the fast knife in his hand with both hands, and then twisted his body, and the power of his waist was unleashed. With John's force, a sharp sword burst out, tearing open the space in an instant and flying towards Lynn. A cold light erupted from Lynn's pupils, and he quickly raised the demon sword village and slashed down hard against the sword light in front of him. The tip of the sword hit the sword chi, and as soon as Lynn exerted force, the sword chi turned in a different direction and then flew out backwards, flying towards John again. John's body fell, and at the moment of falling, the sword chi just flew over, and John swung his sword to block. Bells and bells. A crisp metallic roar sounded. The sword chi was picked up by John and flew to the sea in the distance, instantly cutting the sea in half, and the sea water surged madly to both sides. When Tianyu looked at the sea that had been cut, he was particularly shocked and even a little worried about Lynn. Seems to be afraid that Lynn will be injured. John, your strength is no more than that, today, let you see how strong I am. Lynn laughed wildly. John was very powerful, standing at the top of the world, even the Admiral, not sure enough. Unfortunately, John met Lynn. A man who can defeat Rox, let alone a little John. John also knew that he might not be Lynn's opponent, so he put his hopes on the silver axe. He only hoped that Silver Axe would end the battle as soon as possible, and then join forces with him against Lynn. On the other hand, the Silver Axe also knew John's thoughts, so he did not dare to be merciful, raising his right hand, and a large number of black hairs appeared on the surface of his body. The next second, the size of the Silver Axe continued to expand, and the body that was originally 3 meters high turned into a huge black bear more than 5 meters tall in an instant. This is the demon fruit power of the Silver Axe. Animals are black bear fruit abilities. It was not an ancient species, nor an esper species, but the Silver Axe was relying on such an ordinary demon fruit, constantly climbing and successfully reaching the top of the world. Although it is known as the Silver Axe, it is better at the power of the demon fruit. Boy, just let you know that I can become a cadre of the Rox Pirates, and I am definitely not something you can provoke. The Silver Axe ran fast, and the huge body, like a small mountain, trembled with each step. No kidding, Lao Tzu will never lose to you. Kaido also let out a roar, and then raised the mace in his hand and hit the Silver Axe hard. Bang! The Silver Axe raised his hand and threw the same punch. The huge fist hit the wolf's tooth rod just right, and the strong force exploded, creating a strong air current. Thundered. The earth trembled violently, and suddenly a huge pit appeared, and the two men fell into it. However, neither Kaido nor the Silver Axe retreated, constantly attacking the other side, in a vain attempt to completely defeat the other party in a short period of time. Bang bang bang. A series of collisions sounded, and there was an explosion everywhere in the air, and the invisible air current exploded. There are no pirates nearby. Great, is this the strength of this pirate group? Tianyu also looked at the two people who were fiercely fighting, and his heart was shocked by the strength of the two. Yes, that's the strength of our pirate group, and I'm also very strong. Mitsuki Oda suddenly sprang out, his two swords in his hands constantly swinging, and sword chi leaped out one after another. Countless sword and light sword shadows burst out. Many pirates in the vicinity had not yet come close, and they were cut down by Mitsuki Mita, but in a few moments, Mitsuki Mita's side was full of corpses. Tianyu looked at the triumphant Mitsuki Oda, then quickly turned his head, not looking at Mitsuki Mita, focusing on Lynn. Mitsuki Mita felt that his heart was broken, and then he didn't think much about it, focusing on the pirate, killing the four sides fiercely, and venting the anger in his heart by the way. These pirates were very ordinary, and they were not opponents of Mitsuki Mita, and none of them could beat Mitsuki Mita. The battle between Kaido and the Silver Axe has also entered a white-hot stage, and the two sides have kept moving, but neither of them can help the other. Damn, how can this bastard be so powerful? The Silver Axe's face was a little ugly. Originally, he thought that Kaido was just like this, but he didn't expect Kaido to be so powerful, and he couldn't help Kaido for a while. If he continued to fight like this, he was afraid that Lynn had already divided the winner and the loser, and he had not yet divided the victory and defeat here. Give me to die. The Silver Axe suddenly let out a roar, and then instantly rushed to Kaido's side, slapping it hard. The Silver Axe that erupted was very powerful, and Kaido did not react for a while, and was slapped by the Silver Axe and flew the wolf's tooth stick. However, Kaido quickly returned to his senses, and although the wolf's tooth rod was slapped away, Kaido still raised his stout right hand and slapped it down. This slap just happened to be on the shoulder of the Silver Axe, and with such strong force that even the Silver Axe took a step back, leaving a deep footprint, but it still stabilized the body. The Silver Axe slammed into the ground, leaning forward, its thick right hand clenched into a fist, and the dark right arm flicked hard. His right arm hit Kaido's body, and Kaido was also knocked back, leaving a deep footprint. Kaido raised his hand again and slapped it down. The two of you slapped, I fisted, each one very fierce, completely without the intention of mercy of the subordinates. Thundered. Suddenly, the Silver Axe punched Kaido's body, and Kaido was knocked away, crashing into the wall on one side, knocking the wall down, and the whole person fell into the ruins. The Silver Axe took advantage of the victory and immediately came to the side of the ruins, running fast, like a humanoid tank. At the moment when the Silver Axe approached, Kaido suddenly jumped out of the ruins, and the huge body slammed into the Silver Axe. Kaido's body shape was more robust than the Silver Axe in the form of a black bear, and the power generated by that huge body size could not even be carried by the Silver Axe, and it flew out backwards and tumbled on the ground. The two men started fighting, and it looked as if they were children fighting. After a few moments, Kaido suddenly parted the distance between him and the Silver Axe, and let out a roar that spread throughout the port city. In the roar, Kaido's body quickly grew larger, and soon changed into the form of a green dragon and flew into the air. Dark clouds filled the sky, obscuring the sun. It gives the feeling that a storm is coming. Episode 79, Bang Bang Bang. On the island, the battle between Lynn and John has completely entered a white-hot phase. The fighting between the two sides was particularly intense. The port city had been destroyed by the sword chi of the two men, and there were crisscrossing ravines everywhere, stretching endlessly. The waves in the sky were cut apart and could not be healed for a long time. John looked at Lynn, who was close at hand. His face was particularly ugly, and his hands clenched the blade tightly, constantly swinging the knife. He understood why Rox was defeated by Lynn. It was really Lynn who was too powerful. No matter how sharp his attack was, Lynn did that defense in an orderly manner, without a single flaw. It's not that easy to beat Lynn. John glanced again at the silver axe in the distance, hoping only that the silver axe would end the battle as soon as possible. Unfortunately, the battle between Silver Axe and Kaido was also very fierce, and the two sides fought loudly and colorfully, and it was difficult to distinguish between victory and defeat for a while. John, don't be in a daze, you're doomed. Lynn let out a roar, then approached John and slashed a knife into John's shoulder. John had a murderous look in his eyes, then gritted his teeth, raised the knife in his hand, and stabbed at Lynn fiercely, trying to penetrate Lynn's chest. Lynn had no intention of dodging at all, allowing John to slash it himself, only to block it with domineering. Clang! With a knife slashed in the chest, Lynn took a step back, and the demon knife in his hand was also slashed on John's shoulder, and John also took a step back. Come again. Lynn pounced on John again. The war between the two sides lasted from day to night and from night to day. Such a high-intensity battle, John was a little unable to bear it, although he had not yet entered old age, but after all, he was not a young man. The domineering spirit of both sides is not as strong as before. John, give me death. Lynn clenched the demon knife in both hands, then stabbed John in the abdomen hard. Red domineering is covered with blades. You give me to die. John let out a roar and raised his knife as well, and both stabbed each other down. It's just that Lynn stabbed Lynn in the abdomen, and John stabbed Lynn's heart. If he really stabbed the other party, Lynn, who was stabbed in the heart, would definitely be seriously injured, but he would never die. The people of One Piece world have a strong vitality. Even if they are stabbed in the heart, they will never be killed in a second. Lynn looked at John, who was close at hand, and there was a sudden hint of cunning on his face. At the moment when it was about to be stabbed, the domineering spirit above the demon knife village revealed a dazzling red light, and there was a cherry blossom pattern on the surface. Flowing cherry blossoms are domineering. Lynn stabbed John in the abdomen, and the flowing cherry domineering spirit penetrated John's domineering defenses, stabbing John, and a large amount of blood splattered out. John's top domineering, the same one that ran through Lynn's chest. Only at the moment when it was about to penetrate Lynn's heart, Lynn moved to the side to prevent the heart from being penetrated. The same as a lot of red blood spilling out. Lynn felt a pang of pain, gritted her teeth, and quickly took a step back, pulling away from John. John, you're finished. The corners of John's mouth also had a touch of blood, and his eyes were full of disdain, but more than pity. Lynn, you've got your head kicked, right? Don't forget, I only had an abdominal injury, but you, that was a chest injury, a serious lung injury. Indeed, Lynn was badly injured. But alas, he possessed the horse charm of the 12 spells, and as long as his heart moved, he could immediately launch it and recover from his injuries. However, Lynn is not in a hurry to recover. He is ready to fight with John. And when both sides are seriously injured, Lynn is recovering from the injury. John will be mad to death then. Give me to die. Lynn gritted her teeth, pretended to be tough, then jumped into the air and slashed at John. John had no intention of dodging, raising his hand to a knife, ready to have a hard encounter with Lynn. Anyway, now that he has the advantage, the probability of losing is very small. Poof. Lynn and John slashed at each other at the same time and penetrated each other's defenses, leaving a scar on both of their bodies at the same time. John's wounds, from his shoulders to his chest, were not deep, but they were not shallow either. Instead, the wound on Lynn's body, from the abdomen to the shoulder, was not as deep as John's, but it was longer than the wound on John's body. It looked as if John had the upper hand. John laughed triumphantly. Lynn, you're more hurt than I am, and you're going to lose. In the distance, when he saw the injured Lynn in the sky, he was a little worried, and he was afraid that Lynn would be hurt. Tianyu hesitated, pulled out his weapon, and then gathered his courage and prepared to fight alongside Lynn. But at the moment when she stepped forward, Lynn suddenly burst out laughing, and the laughter was very loud. Ha ha ha. John, I said you lost, you still don't believe it, do you really think you can hurt me? As Lynn laughed, his heart moved, the horse charm was activated in an instant, and the injuries on his body recovered at a speed visible to the naked eye. John's eyes widened in disbelief. He felt that he might have seen it wrong, or had hallucinated, or how else could Lynn have recovered, without any wounds? Obviously, it was still bleeding before. John took another closer look, and Lynn seemed to have traces of blood on her body, which should not be fake, and must have been injured before. But why is it now restored? Lynn rubbed her heart. Not to mention, it does hurt. Although the horse charm can restore the scar, the previous pain will not disappear, and now there is still some faint pain. Especially before being pierced through John's chest. How's it going? Wouldn't you be surprised? I was not injured. Lynn had a look of ridicule in her eyes. John was indeed shocked. Everyone who said yes was injured together, and then changed his life, and as a result, Lynn actually had nothing to do. There is no more martial virtue. Lynn bullied him, this old comrade could not recover. Tianue also stopped, just really worried about Lynn, did not expect that Lynn actually did not have anything to do. John, it looks like you've lost, and today is your day to die. A red light suddenly appeared in Lynn's eyes, and endless murderous chi erupted, slowly enveloping John. Since you are an enemy of him, you can only die. A chill also welled up in John's heart. He may really be going to lose today. Episode 80. John was about to collapse. He and Lynn are so desperate, exchanging injuries for injuries, hoping to defeat Lynn. As a result, Lynn was more seriously injured than he was, and he died of excitement, thinking that he could eliminate Lynn. I didn't expect Lynn to recover so quickly, the blow was a little too big, and he couldn't accept it for a while. I said it a long time ago, you're finished. Lynn flashed a flash, grabbed the demon knife in his hand, and rushed to John, ready to fight with John again. Anyway, he had the horse charm, and even if he was seriously injured, he could recover in a short time, so there was no need to be afraid at all. On the contrary, John, frightened by Lynn's ability, did not dare to fight with Lynn and could only keep dodging. Time passed little by little, and John still couldn't help Lynn, and his heart was very flustered. He knew that after being injured, he was no longer Lynn's opponent, nor could he beat Lynn. A way to retreat had to be found. After making his decision, John quickly turned around and jumped into the sea on one side, ready to swim away. Lynn, next time, I'll definitely take revenge, and you're waiting for me. Lynn looked at John, who had not forgotten to leave the harsh words behind, and his heart was a little speechless. I thought I could escape by jumping into the sea. Don't know if he can fly? Lynn immediately changed into black dragon form and flew into mid-air, but in a few moments, she came directly above John. The huge dragon claws also grabbed at John. John also felt the darkening sky and swam desperately downwards, hoping to hide far away. He knew very well that Lynn was a demon fruit-capable person who could not walk in the sea, and could escape as long as he entered the sea. Unfortunately, John did not know that his demonic fruit ability was not afraid of the sea, and could even bathe in the sea. It's just that Lynn and Kaido didn't show it, and these people didn't know it. Idiot. Lynn sneered, a swoop, and soon rushed into the sea, the current hitting the body, and the strong resistance limited Lynn's speed. But these resistances are nothing at all. Especially for Lynn's speed, it didn't feel anything at all. Lynn just blinked and came to John's back, the huge dragon claws grabbing at John. How is this possible? John roared in surprise, and a great deal of sea water poured into his mouth, but he could not take care of it that much. He also didn't expect Lynn to be able to swim in the sea, and so fast, that in a blink of an eye, he would come behind him. If you want to escape now, it is estimated that it is too late. John immediately turned around, raised the sword in his hand, and prepared to rebel against Lynn, but he took a slow step and was squeezed in the palm of Lynn's hand. John, you've lost. Lynn's dragon claws squeezed hard, and powerful forces gathered from all directions, squeezing John tightly. John's face was livid, and he wanted to resist, but his strength was not as good as Lynn's. In particular, he was still injured on his body, and he was pinched by Lynn like this, and the blood was directed, and the injury was even more serious. Go and die, you. Lynn opened the dragon's mouth, and black flames spat out, constantly burning John. John was already injured, burned by the flames, and even the domineering spirit could not resist, and was soon burned into black charcoal. It's over. Lynn gently threw John out. John fell heavily to the ground, his body had turned to charcoal, and there was only a hint of breathing, but it was getting weaker and weaker. This pirate standing at the top of the world fought with Lynn for a day and a night, and finally lost. In the distance, Silver Axe had been watching the battle here, and of course found that John had been defeated, and his face was somewhat pale. Even John was defeated by Lynn, who had not yet defeated Kaido. When Lynn returns, he will definitely do something to him, and then how to face Lynn and Kaido. After another moment, John's breathing finally stopped, and a generation of tyrants fell. After solving John, Lynn turned to look at the black bear Silver Axe in the distance, and a cold light appeared in his eyes. Silver Axe naturally noticed Lynn's eyes, and a chill welled up in his heart. Lynn, I concede, I'm willing to go to you, I just hope you can let me go. In the face of the murderous Lynn, Silver Axe finally compromised, as long as he could live, nothing else. I'm sorry, I don't want to let you go. Lynn suddenly sped up, and soon came directly above the Silver Axe, and the huge dragon claw slapped down on the Silver Axe. Kaido also flew over, opened his mouth, and spat out a mouthful of crimson hot flames, constantly burning. The face of the Silver Axe was particularly ugly. He understood that Lynn wanted to kill him. He could never have waited to die. Lynn, don't think you're so good that you can get me, I won't admit it. The Silver Axe let out a roar, then leaped violently, flew into the air, and then rushed towards Lynn. The three men fought fiercely again. Half a day later, there was only one person in the Silver Axe. How could it be the opponent of Lynn and Kaido? After a loud noise, the Silver Axe was also slapped to the ground by Lynn, and his breath became weaker and weaker, and he looked more and more tired. Silver Axe opened his eyes with difficulty. Lynn, I really regret why I didn't kill you in the first place, I knew you were in such trouble, I must have killed you. After speaking, Silver Axe closed his eyes, did not say a word, and silently waited for his future. He really didn't want to die if he could, but Lynn had no intention of letting him go, and he certainly couldn't admit it. Lynn spat out a flame. The Silver Axe was eventually burned to death by Lynn. The battle is finally over. Lynn slowly transformed into human form and took a deep breath. After fighting for nearly 2 days, he was also quite tired, but fortunately he finally got John and Silver Axe. Kaido was also tired. I was a sea thief I used to be, I fought for 2 days and didn't have any advantage. In the distance, Tianwei and Mitsuki Oda immediately ran over. When the moon opened her hands and pounced on Lynn, Lynn smelled a fragrance coming from the air. Lynn, I'm really worried about you. Rest assured, I'll be fine. Lynn hugged Tianwei tightly and took a deep breath of the fragrance in the air. Not to mention, it's pretty in the middle of the day. Or have a son named Hayashi no Soke. Or have a daughter named Lynn Rai. Neither name sounds good.